Hi there, Richard Filmer here, and welcome to another Richard's Rock Rambles from a very cold and a very wet Cape Town. So we're carrying on with our hidden gems, although today's album is more an overlooked album, I think, as opposed to a hidden gem. I mean, people have always known about this album, but they've kind of passed it by for albums that perhaps were more popular by this artist. So we're going to chat about Neil Young, a great Canadian songwriter, singer, multi-instrumentalist, producer, etc., etc., who's been going for quite a while, still going, still releasing albums. And the album we're going to be chatting about is from 1974, and it was entitled On the Beach. Now, this is an album which has divided fans. Some like it, like myself, some don't. They say, no, it's too dark and too out there. But that's what I like about it. It's different. It is dark. It's got some pretty heavy subject matter. But the previous album, Tonight's the Night, was in a similar vein. I mean, if you're expecting to hear a Harvest or a Harvest Moon or one of the other big sellers from Neil Young, this ain't for you. This is a very different sounding album. But it was where he was at that particular time, you know, in his head. He wasn't doing well with Tonight's the Night. That was an album where he previously lost two very close associates and due to drug use. And he himself was doing some drugs during this period, the early 1970s. So yeah, it was different, but I've always found it interesting. And it's just one of those albums that has grown on me over the years. It's not an immediate listen. You know, you listen to this the first time and you think, oh, it's okay. But something sticks in your head. And to me, that's always a sign of a great album. It may not be the fans' favorite, but it's definitely a favorite of mine. And after this video, hopefully it'll be a favorite of yours. So, when was this released? Well, it was his fifth album. That's the first thing. And it was recorded at Sunset Sound Studios between February the 5th and April the 7th in 1974. And it was released on July the 19th of that same year. And it was produced by Neil Young and a guy by the name of David Briggs, who would go on to produce quite a few of Neil Young's albums. So you had On the Beach, this particular album, and Tonight's the Night was released before, or recorded before, but only released after, if that makes any sense. The CD version of this album was only released in 2003. That was because Neil Young never wanted it released for whatever reason, whether it was production or the subject matter or whatever it was. It was available on 8-track, on cassette, and I think on vinyl before it was also discontinued on vinyl, and then eventually released on CD, as I said, in 2003. So, who's on the album? Well, obviously Neil Young's there, doing vocals, guitar, a couple of other things as well, a few percussion instruments. And there were a few guests on this album as well, notable guests. Rick Danko from the band, Levin Helm played drums from the band on a few tracks. Graham Nash, his old buddy from Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. David Crosby also there. As well as his Crazy Horse bandmates, Billy Talbot and Ralph Molina, with him for many, many albums as the Crazy Horse lineup. So that's enough waffling about the album. Let me show you the album. And this album has got one of the weirdest covers in the Neil Young catalogue. He's got a few, but this one I think takes the cake. There he is, staring out to sea. Sorry about the glare. There's a car that's been submerged in the sand. There's an umbrella with two beach chairs. And I think there's a newspaper to do with Nixon. So it kind of tells you something about the album. Yeah, and there's O'Neill with his long hair. And that's the back. I think there are some other photographs on a re-release on the vinyl. This one doesn't have much in the inside, apart from each track and who plays on what. Sorry. And on the inside is a little note from Neil Young. Quite interesting. So, let's get to the all-important songs. And there are some tracks on here which just blow my mind because nobody else would release an album like this except Neil Young. You know, Neil Young was a guy or an artist until today who's never followed trends, who's never done what he was supposed to do, what the record company wanted him to do. He's always followed his own path and to great success. You know, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't, but I think in Neil's case, to a large extent, it has worked. And that's why I take my hat off to the guy. You know, he doesn't pander to record companies or to what fans want. He does what he wants. And yes, sometimes that alienates band members within his band, and, you know, maybe it pisses people off sometimes, but that's just who he is, and he's made no excuses for that. So the first track is one called Walk On, which is kind of the slow, meandering track, and it sets the tone for the album. Interesting lyrics. Then one of my favorites is a track called See the Sky About to Rain. A beautiful track with some great vocals from Neil. Sometimes Neil Young's vocals can be a bit screechy and out there, but he usually really sings well on this album. Some of it's very sort of toned down. Then we have a track called Revolution Blues. Now, who else at that stage, seeing it was quite soon after the murders, would sing a song about Charles Manson? Well, Neil Young did. Revolution Blues, and he's singing as Charles Manson. Interesting lyrics. In fact, Neil Young had met Charles Manson, I think, previously, and yeah, obviously been quite a interesting meeting, I would imagine. So that's Revolution Blues, also one of my favorite on here. Then you got For the Turnstiles, Vampire Blues, which is all about oil companies and how they rip off people. So that's having a go at the establishment, something that Neil Young, even from his days with Buffalo Springfield, was very good at. The title track, On the Beach, Motion Pictures, and Ambulance Blues, also one of my favorite tracks. I don't think there's a bad track on here. Give it a chance. It's, as I said, not an immediate listen that you go, wow, this is an incredible album, but it does grow on you. And if you're a Neil Young fan or follower and you've always sort of overlooked this album, give it another try. It's well worth checking out again. And I must be honest, I reach for this a lot more than I do the favorites like Harvest. It just speaks to me for whatever reason. My favorite tracks, like I said, Revolution Blues, See the Sky About to Rain, Ambulance Blues. There's some great harmonica playing on here from Neil, as per usual. Nice guitar work, some great acoustic work as well. But it's acoustic work with a bit of an edge, especially the subject matter and the lyrics. So there we go, a gentleman who's been around for a while, a huge catalogue. But that's my hidden gem for the day, my overlooked album, On the Beach by Neil Young. Oh yes, one more thing. It didn't sell well. It wasn't a big seller for him, but it did manage to go gold in the States. But I really think it's an album that deserves a lot more credit. I'll catch you guys again soon. Take it easy out there. If you haven't before, please down below, subscribe. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Any comments, more than welcome. And I'll catch you soon. Cheers.